Hey, Carlo. It's been a great time catching up. We are so excited from Harmony to be able to partner you again. Today, I want to really ask you a few questions, both for Harmony community to know about Hummingbot, but also hopefully your community to get to know what are some of the latest development, especially some of the DeFi applications. To start, again, welcome.
Thanks for having me on. Definitely glad to discuss and keep you guys update you on what's going on our side and then the platform. Obviously, you guys were pretty much our first campaign ever, so it's good to be having you guys involved in pretty much every step of the way
Absolutely.
as our product and company grows as well.
Yeah, it has been an amazing few years that we get to know each other for many years, but also started this blockchain journey together. But for our audience, would you mind saying a few things about yourself,
Sure.
Also a little bit about Hummingbot?
Sure, sounds good. So myself, I'm come from the background of Wall Street. So a long time was in investment banking, 13 years, New York, London, Singapore, Hong Kong, kind of all over the place. I left, I studied engineering in college in addition to finance. So always had the inkling to do something technical. So back in 2013, I left banking and then started a startup in Asia. We're doing big data software for governments applications. After that, I kind of moved to the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, and that's where kind of Hummingbot Coin Alpha, which is our official company name, came about at the time. So I came to Silicon Valley kind of looking for the next thing to do. Started going to some Bitcoin, Ethereum meetups back in early 2017, and it was like, for me with a finance background and tech background, it was like ideal fit. So that's kind of how we started, and kind of how our journey brought us here today is Mike, our CEO, co-founder, and also Martin, also with roots from TGI days. We kind of got together. We first started a hedge fund in the crypto space, and then that kind of evolved. So we were building a lot of tech integrations to exchanges, blockchain products, protocols. So we kind of thought, obviously, the biggest need in crypto was liquidity. It's a big problem to be addressed. So that's kind of how we eventually came to Hummingbot. So Hummingbot, we open sourced the Hummingbot trading bot in 2019, early 2019. And we thought that the best way to address liquidity in a wider scale was to decentralize it. So have it open, like lower the barriers, let everyone participate. So like don't rely on these hedge funds to basically make all this money from everyone. I think give the capabilities to the public, to the general public, and that's kind of how we first started. And so Hummingbots kind of evolved into I think like one of the leading open source market making trading bots out there. I think in the crypto space, we're pretty well known because I think we've kind of established it so that it's kind of like a public utility. It's a utility that everyone can use and build on top of. So we've kind of built the framework to allow anyone, like traders, to use it out of the box, and then also customize it, build on strategy. So do the fun stuff, because like, traders would rather focus on their strategy and the trading. They don't want to focus about low-level exchange integrations and stuff like that. That's kind of how we started. And then the next step was liquidity mining. So what that is, and I know like liquidity mining became really popular over the past year, particularly the DeFi space. What some people don't really know is that we actually wrote the original white paper on liquidity mining on November 2019. So our approach versus DeFi is more the centralized exchange approach. So we basically, similar concept as you think of when you think Balancer, Curve-Fi, Uniswap, liquidity mining, but for centralized exchanges, which to be honest is a lot more difficult and nuanced and complex, because it's not just a smart contract. We're dealing with like trade data from exchanges. So we have to actually process trade data from all the users. And what liquidity mining does is create a framework to incentivize for liquidity market making, and we can set specific terms on how we actually do that.
Yeah, that's a great overview. Carlo, you
that's totally a pretty long intro there.
You're totally underselling yourself. Not only the fact that you graduated from a great college, University of Pennsylvania, that you have both the humanity background, but also computer science coding. For the audience here, this guy actually won hackathon, DApps competition that I've seen him code in action.
Yeah.
It's really impressive that given the long history background that all of their teammates, co-founders all come from the top like JP Morgan and firms, that they actually know the product, they know the need, they know the utility, and now can actually build a financial infrastructure. Most of all, Harmony is also very grateful that both Mike and Carlo has helped us along the way to understand why building a blockchain, why building the decentralized finance as an open platform. And as Carlo was saying, this is really, they are very well known for the Hummingbot's integrations and infrastructure. They are also well known for the trader community, for curating the community about open source development that surrounding any financial needs, I would say. So quite an accomplishment.
Thanks. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah, coming back here, I think many of what Hummingbot has done around liquidity mining as well as market making, it will come out when some of the questions I have prepared. The also amazing thing is what they have, what they are doing right now, but also what they plan to do the rest of the year. We're so tied to many of the like big name DeFi project that you will hear very soon. So I'll also come back to question around that. So before that, for hopefully for the Hummingbot community audience, I just want to say a few words about Harmony so that it sets the stages why we ask those questions.
Okay.
I do think this is a perfect time for many of the base layer protocols as well as a DeFi project to think about Hummingbot approach and Hummingbot utility. So I would say a few things what Harmony want to do this year. Hopefully we will a lot more collaboration with Hummingbot.
Sounds good. Yeah, we're looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, I think for Harmony it's very simple as thinking about how blockchain can be more scalable and useful by more people. I think finally this year there are many more mainnets coming on that serve that purpose. Now it becomes a fragmentation problem.
Yeah.
The first question we need to answer is, and every of our developer ask is, how do we assess all the assets and liquidity already on Ethereum?
How do we assess them?
Yeah, how do we not just check out the value oracles and all that, but actually like be able to like port them over, trade them, push it back, basically market make between the two
Sure.
of the network. They having different traders, but also different community around. Some people arbitrage among the pools.
That's a good question, and that's actually a problem that we're actually focused on, like literally in the middle of. So what we've done with Hummingbot is we've partnered with a number of protocols so far. So for example, like Balancer, Uniswap, Celo, Terra. And what we do is, because we're kind of the glue or the link between, so we've created strategies where, as you folks probably listening all know how AMMs work, they rely on outside arbitrageurs to maintain pricing. So obviously, it's a bit difficult if you're not to do that for some users. Basically, we have to. So we've created strategies where people can automatically trade, so they can hedge on, say, a Binance or Coinbase and trade on the AMM whenever there's an arbitrage opportunity. So that we've automated. So that's kind of one strategy we've launched and I've developed. So with folks like Harmony as well, like, so if we partner with you on that, that's something we can help bring to yours. So that helps us kind of find misalignments in markets and kind of make them more efficient. Yep.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be the fundamental, if not going to be the sustainable utility of many of the financial like integrations, I would say. There will be really more and more permissionless system. People only think about like bringing up a new technology. They haven't thought about the silo of different ecosystem and different markets, right? They used to be only about Bitcoin and then Ethereum, but then by the virtue of it is actually better to innovate in different ways in different mainnets. Then how do you connect them? That's the first question. And honestly, that's what we want to think about, the cross-chain communication element as an infrastructure for Harmony to solve. But then those are like just the technology layer, right? The assets as well as the liquidity layer is actually a much harder problem. There will be always multiple markets, and the arbitrage between them is a real problem.
Yep.
And I think both centralized exchange and then now Uniswap for all the Ethereum asset has been somewhat of a like known problems, right? How do you, Hummingbot and you guys see of a cross-chain arbitrage opportunities?
Yeah, so that's what the strategy does now, and I think like, yeah, you mentioned there's a lot of cross-chain kind of protocols and things like that, which is, I would say, probably a lot more complicated because with at least on our approach to it is we're focusing on one part of it, just basically the making sure the markets function well, and so we can actually do that right now because we're not like creating an entirely new protocol. What we're just doing is working within the existing systems. So how that works is we'll connect to Binance. So we already have that with like Harmony. We can create an integration to trade on Harmony. So we're using existing things, but just kind of basically orchestrating the trading across different platforms. So that's probably a bit easier than like, having a really secure cross-chain approach to it. Obviously, there's pros and cons. I mean, we're not actually moving assets around between chains like that directly. We're transacting within each, but we're doing so just focusing on one part of that overall problem, which I think is something that's more applicable right now. I mean, that suits most of the needs right now. Obviously, like an efficient cross-chain solution would be great, but even for right now, our approach actually already tackles at least the markets aspect of that problem.
I think so. I think it works at all different levels, right? When there are like just a unified network or unified cross-chain communication standard, of course, it could be very much easy. Everything seems integrated already. But then if not, then there are lots of arbitrage opportunity for traders to be like just integrated with central exchange, integrated with different platforms. And then at the end of the day, if people don't do it, then just mean a manual opportunity, which Hummingbot is really automating and helping all traders, right?
Right.
So a few years ago, everyone talked about like kimchi premium. Right now, it does sounds more like Coinbase premium, right? So how do I would say, still your customer or your community think about all these different premium or like crazy arbitrage opportunity? Like, do you guys be able to identify even what may be coming this year?
Yeah, I think definitely. So what we found just generally how the space has evolved is I think like obviously Ethereum is great, but it has its problems. I mean, if like I just did some transactions a few minutes ago, and just to transfer Tether to someone cost me like $8 in transaction fees, right? And we've seen that like, even with these protocols like Balancer and things, if you're yield farming, if every transaction costs you $50 to do a transaction, that's just that basically excludes all the smaller players or the common user, what it was kind of originally intended to be for, but we're kind of pricing them out. So I think like with the other protocols coming that are coming to address this, there's a great time because obviously there's a big problem and there's room for innovation, and we're seeing some of that Harmony as well, addressing this problem. And I think with this fragmentation comes a need to kind of find bridges. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to build bridges. Obviously, for us as well, the more exchanges we connect to, the more protocols we connect to, the more power we can bring to our user base. So that's why, like, that's how we see it. Like all this additional markets, all these protocols is a big opportunity for our user. But at the same time, like they're able to capture value, but at the same time, they're delivering value because they're helping these different platforms also function and their core, like solve their core purpose, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, at the same time.
I think so. Well, thanks for keep saying like what can a role Harmony can play, right? But back to one of the problems that you guys told me about, I wish you guys told me earlier, is how the like the bloom of like DeFi is inevitable, right? Is coming of the invincible summer of all these different financial instruments that you guys saw that Wall Street need to provide in order to provide any financial infrastructure for like broad user space. Let me start with an easy one. Just stable coins of US dollars, right? You guys also saw that now that whether USDC or Tether launch on so many different chains, even your customers on Algorand or maybe Solana, maybe USD on Harmony, even as simple as $1, right? There are like literally 10, if not 20 of them already on mainnet.
Yep.
to be able to swap, if not to arbitrage between, let's say, Algorand, USDT, let's say Harmony USDT someday. Why is this such a big problem for your customers?
I think so. Being able to interact easy. So, for example, I'll give the example of Algorand. So right now we are for their campaign, we're actually using their platform to pay out USDT. So the problem is there used to be, when we first launched the campaign, there was a tool called Swap Tether, which was great because you could switch between Algorand USDT and ERC20 or TRC20, all the different implementations.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they took that down because now they have to technical nuts and bolts. They have to do some KYC kind of things. So we implement that. But so it was really easy then. But the problem now is for Algorand, USDT ASA, which is Algorand protocol. They are rolling out to more venues, but right now, for example, it's only supported by Bitfinex and some other smaller exchanges. Although they're launching on other ones such as like Kucoin, I think next week. Yeah. The problem is like, so we've had for the program, for example, people were trading on Binance to participate in the campaign. Yeah. They were receiving rewards in USDT ASA. But they couldn't really do anything with them because they'd have to go to Bitfinex or create a Bitfinex account in order to switch it out just to normal USDT. So that was a problem. So kind of going between platforms, in that case, it's they require compatibility and to be able to access, or otherwise, literally in that example, even though you're receiving USDT ASA, you can't do anything with it unless you have a Bitfinex account. Exactly. So that's the limitation. But obviously, I think they are implementing a new version of the Swap Tether, one that's maybe not to the DeFi community would not be so pleased about because it will require KYC. But when that's back up, that obviously solves a lot of those problems for people, at least for people willing to do KYC.
Right, exactly. And I think that's where there's still a long road to innovations, right? Yeah. What you said about can people like seamlessly to begin with, do they have an option, right? Do they must sign up the Bitfinex account doing KYC? That's a pretty high bar, right? Yeah. And for such a simple problem of like one stable coin, one value is picked already, that there may be like lots of like high fees, right? Both for the fact that many of the swap providers are like OTC, right? Back in the days, right? You don't know how it works, you don't know the technology, you don't know their security, and they charge pretty good fees, right? What's the normal range for like even of a small like swap providers these days?
Actually, for Tether, so for you can also do things like even on Binance, you can swap from ERC20 to TRC20. They actually don't like charge that much or at all. Well, they'll charge like just gas fees if you withdraw ERC20. So if you transact, for example, if you do TRC20, they actually don't charge any fees because. Well, and before it was even that way for Ethereum before gas prices kind of blew up, right?
Right.
So that one's not so. But if you charge, like we also do some of our bit of our treasury if we need to switch between like Tether to something. If we have large amounts, we do trade with the market makers. Yeah, and they'll take like 0.005%, like 0.5%, like so. There is some friction cost associated with that. Even just going from one version of USDT to another like blockchain's version of USDT.
That's true. Well, you of course, if you're finance or central exchange, usually it's free, very minimal. Normal trading fees is a withdrawal that is painful. Some of the pairs they may not support, and it's good story that you guys may also need another more like OTC market maker to help transition the currency, because there are lots of people that actually just go to any like website that have a swapping page, and the fees can be like high and you don't know the risk there. So I do believe what you said about even a particular USD problem is like going to be like there are still a lot of innovation, if not like your whether your community or technology platform provider can help. And we haven't even started talking about all these regional currencies, right? My family is still in Hong Kong, my background grew up there. And for you to understand the Asia market, do you see other than USD, what would be a regional stablecoin this year will be important for, I would say, a premium, right, or arbitrage opportunity?
Yep. We've been seeing a number of different kind of trading pairs in different currencies. Like even one random one is, so we launched a campaign for Avalanche, and
Mhm.
one of their quote assets is Turkish lira.
Oh, for sure, for good
So there's
reason.
actually a Turkish lira trading pair on Binance, which we're
Yeah.
running the campaign on. So
Mhm.
that's one, because they do have a Turkish community
Yeah.
there. But I think like obviously just the main currencies, like obviously euro, pound, and
Mhm.
things like
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
will be something, that could be traded on the blockchains more efficiently
Yeah. Yeah.
and transacted.
Yeah. I do see even US recognize the stable coins as a legal tender now that like globally. It's just for both innovations, but also for staying competitive in all these fintech products. I do
Yeah.
think that blockchain can play a strong role, and by extension, market maker will have lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
Right.
Even
Basically, it's
yeah.
a almost a forex open market for any traders to be market making all day.
Yeah, and even in Asia, like back to Asia, like we've seen some trading pairs against Indonesian rupiah. So like, and we've worked with stablecoin uh, uh, companies from Indonesia who are
Yeah.
doing like stablecoin Indonesian rupiah kind of things. Yeah.
Mhm. I think so. So you also spend lots of like time understanding the U.S. Climate, but in particular the compliance, all these legal framework. Do you see the Uniswap approach of launching a utility token, but also a product that actually gain user and utility, so that they don't need to do KYC, they don't worry about the tokens like really running into foul with SEC, or you see like more problem like from like Phoenix and everyone getting into trouble. Some swaps and some Uniswap clones are more careful. Some are just outside of US.
Yeah.
Do you see? Well, you and us are also based in US, right? Are we playing disadvantage?
Yep. I think we are. To be honest, anyone in the crypto space who's from the US to some degree has a competitive disadvantage. And it's not because like we're like trying to find ways to skirt the rules. It's just because the SEC's approach is not always so clear. It's also, you just don't know. And a lot of it's just like, how do you live with uncertainty is the problem. And I mean, obviously, even with us, we just try to do everything as by the books as possible. But again, sometimes by the books, like it's not really defined. So we just basically just try to take things very carefully. I think there's even other proposals. I've heard FinCEN, they had a proposal that any transactions in crypto will require some form of KYC. Obviously, if we have things like that, it's going to be a massive hit to our industry, because I mean, even, and again, we're solving for things like even just analogies like what's the most popular used currency for criminals? It's the US
It's
dollar.
dollars.
Yeah, the US dollar. So it's like,
Cash
so
dollars. Right?
you're solving the problem where in hindering advancement for people who want to do good things,
Mhm.
expecting because there's a few players who want to do the bad things. So
Mhm.
it is a very complex problem. So I mean, that's why I don't think the SEC is just purposely making it vague. It is complicated, and it's probably difficult to come to grasp the right approach to it.
Yeah.
So that's why I think, yeah, for us it's challenging. I think like other jurisdictions, maybe like Singapore or some others, at least they are a bit more open to it, and probably more open to engaging
Mhm.
with companies. It's easier to do that, which I think engaging with the SEC is probably more just a bigger obstacle and barrier.
Mhm.
Probably requires lots of legal fees as well, which not all new companies, startups, or blockchain companies may necessarily have the resources to do so. Even though, like, obviously we would want to have some things more clarified, but I
Mhm.
think it's just we take what it is, just keep up to date on regulations, and just try to be mindful of these things to avoid any problems.
Yeah, no, this is very helpful. Because I know you guys have seen the growth of Uniswap, but also like Wi-Fi and many projects that actually launch global community, but also like governance token that actually some US still receive a airdrop, right? You also see how hard it was back in 2018-19. Lots of projects got shut down by
Yeah.
SEC just because they don't do proper KYC and they don't like restrict the US maybe a little bit more specific for a base protocol, Harmony, or having our partners launch DeFi application, do you still have advice? Well, you're not a lawyer, but like, what can our audience even understand how a US base protocol, a US DeFi project should think about?
Sure. I think on this, it is obviously a lot of it is there's different varying levels of risk. So like things like if it's a utility token, so there's the concept of user, obviously from FinCEN's perspective. So there's a few things obviously we need to consider FinCEN and also SEC security. So how the token was, what it means, like how it actually behaves, and what it's like, what's its use versus like. So what's the real kind of incentive for people to use and own that token for? So from a US perspective, I think just trying to just I guess if you get around the Howey test and make sure your token is utility token, it's a bit more like you're kind of reducing your regulatory risk, but all these things are just kind of trying to establish some kind of fact pattern and then try to see like where it falls into the spectrum. Because again, it's always not so clear, black and white. Other things like Wi-Fi and things like, as it becomes to take on more properties of securities, and obviously it raises more and more red flags, or potentially goes further deeper into the gray area. So in terms of that, I haven't really thought specifically like how that falls within the US guidelines as yet. But I think obviously the DeFi space, things like yield farming, all these things are probably at the forefront or very top of the list into what the SEC is looking to. So I guess we just have to wait for more guidance on these things. But again, the general approach is like the more it looks like a security, the more it's like there's things happening. Like, is it paying dividends? Is it required? Is it being sold or marketed as in there'll be profits and things like that? Then it starts becoming a bit more like a security like.
Yeah. I think the lawyers the last few years learn a lot, and we pay a lot of fees just for that. I think you summarize well for some of the base political risk. And it's also amazing Uniswap be able to launch as such, having strong utility, but be able to give out governance token, even being US and Silicon Valley based, to have such bold move to set the tone. Right? Hopefully they will take some of the,
I think
the compliance risk first.
The Compound and the Uniswap approach. So what their approach is, because they've basically made this public utility, and their approach for their tokens is the founding teams have kind of stepped out of the picture. So like they're actually not controlling the protocol anymore. They've left it more to the community. So that's kind of one of the big factors and how they've gotten comfortable with those being not securities, because it all comes to like also token distribution, like how widely distributed it is, how much of it is held by the founders, and like for things like Wi-Fi, for example, like they didn't have any, they didn't hold any at all, right? It was basically earned directly from the protocol from anyone. So there's not even any founders kind of stake in it. So things like that, I think that does make the token itself a bit more safer, but I would also say that's safer from the founder's perspective. So like they're probably they're puts them in a safer position, but I'm not sure like going forward, like, but then the other question is like, if out of this protocol you create security like interest-bearing things out of this protocol, I guess like even in that case, if it's created by the community, who would the SEC go after if they think it's a security? So like, there's this really like
after the entity, right?
There's almost kind of really strange questions. Like, how does it even like how can you even enforce an action on something that's not created by a single person, or there's no like creator or kind of controller of it?
And that's why I like the Hummingbot approach, right? This is really about technology, open source, and almost like a service to all your partners and your community, that you provide this like product to help them make their own trading. In particular, market making has always been a lucrative business, I would say, even in Wall Street, but always opaque, right? You guys actually completely change that conversation. Many of your partners, from what I gather, is they need that kind of service anyway. They don't have open source. They don't have a decentralized solution. So even 2 years ago, that's why when we were launching our token sales and Binance listing, it was just incredible that you guys have that vision. Do you see now that everyone really start to understand like the importance of decentralized market making?
Yeah, definitely. I think also like as we've seen it just blow up in the last few months, even centralized exchanges. I know like we're very close to some of them. Even they're trying to rethinking their approach to it, because it is like these decentralized protocols are an existential threat to centralized exchanges, right? Just to some degree. Like if someone like the basic function of capital markets in general is issuing tokens and doing and placing them in the market and having them trade. But if someone's, instead of paying like Binance $1 million or something to do that, well, if projects start going to AMMs and say, hey, I just create a pool on Uniswap and issue my tokens that way, obviously that could be a big, really disruptive problem. But I think like one thing though is like I think it's still really I think there's a place for both. So I think like there's still things that centralized exchange I think they'll continue to exist and still be really important because I think there's for example just some examples are like institutions. So some institutions like institutional trading companies or regulated companies, they can't touch an AMM because of the KYC thing, but they can trade on Binance. So I think there's always like, I don't think it's like a one solution that will basically replace everything, take over. I think AMMs have their place and use in their need. Centralized exchanges have their place and their use in their need. But what's it's also shown is that, that centralized exchanges need to, like, they're paying attention. So they're also like seeing what's going on. And obviously I think it will help improve, as with all markets over time, they'll evolve and be more efficient. So like, so like if a project is gonna say, okay, why would I list on Binance to pay $1 million if I can list on an AMM for you know, just pool? So I think like it'll bring maybe some, hopefully, like, you know, some kind of more efficient terms for different issuers, like, and not just like even centralized versus decentralized, even other smaller, other new centralized exchanges, all doing the same thing. It's still a really competitive market, and with something new and competitive, it's good because it drives innovation and should overall make everything more efficient. Yeah.
That's really very aligned with our vision too, that the world is not just about decentralized or centralized. It's not just about having one platform either, right? The centralized really provide some customer service, some compliance that maybe no community want to be holding that level of like paperwork and legal stuff. For me, I actually would love to pitch you the whole product idea that Harmony is really working on. Again, that's very tied to DeFi and tied to market making. I mentioned to you and to your co-founder Mike before, but I think for our audience, I can say one more time. But I'd love to get your perspective, right? Because not only you are like a builder and coder, but you also understand finance. And also the fact that your community is interested in any infrastructure angle so that they see where the platform is going, they know where the opportunity is. Shall we give it a try?
Sure, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, so for Harmony, the story is very simple. Can the open infrastructure enable more liquidity? We pose it as a cross-chain DEX, right? To keep it more simple, a cross-chain Uniswap, cross-chain connectivity so that you have more payers to trade. You have more flow of both application user assets, but also composing all these financial instruments, right? Never mind like protocol features of latency fees and all that. The key question is, will traders be interested? Will there be opportunities for liquidity to go for out of rack for like different reasons, but also for traders and Hummingbot community and their bots to be able to arbitrage efficiently? So here's my pitch.
Sure.
Yeah. So for the longest time, it's only about centralized exchange be able to integrate with all these like new open platform. Like for the longest time, it's only Ethereum assets that are more like tradables, and that's where I would say even Binance have the long tail of like alternative currencies, right? Well, certainly last year there are many, many mainnets, right? It is true that staking has become very hard, but then it's just sticking on its own, right? It's just
Right.
its own ecosystem. Exchange still be able to integrate many of these assets together, but more of a very much of a menu process, right? You click and trade, you buy and sell, market maker come, and you take the arbitrage opportunity, even across different central exchange. Now the question is, can there be a Uniswap that not swap only Ethereum assets, but what about all these Harmony assets, Avalanche assets? For sure, Cosmo already have a few assets. Polkadot is going to be big this year. What does that cross-chain DEX needs to do, and what can the traders really be able to capture, both within the on the DEX itself,
Right.
because you work with many DEX partners, you work with Curve as well, and then on the DEX with the central exchange, right?
Yep. Yeah, good question. So I think on that, I would say like just on the Ethereum part, because that's kind of what's been tested so far. I think the problem there is just there's not, so the assets people want to trade may not necessarily be there. For example, like if I wanted to trade one of the most widely traded, let's say Bitcoin, US dollar, or USDT or whatever, like I'm not even sure. Like, can you even trade that on Ethereum right now? I know there's wrapped. There is wrapped BTC. Yep, sure. There's a few things like that. But one of the problems is like the pairs that people weren't wanted to trade weren't there before, even though they might be in some form now. Like maybe there is wrapped BTC. Cool. I think so. I think traders will go where it's most convenient and easiest to trade, and where they have the choice. Also, so they'll go where the order book's deepest, where they get the best execution, lowest slippage. They'll go where if the asset they want to trade is not on there, then they can't go there. I personally think, like for example, like I don't think traders have any like loyalty, as in that's even in the centralized exchange. It's like you go from Mt. Gox to Coinbase to Binance. Like the evolution of like prominent exchanges keeps changing. Why? Because they come out and offer something better. So then like so Coinbase became big. There's Poloniex and all these things. Then Binance became big because they had every token pair and not just like a handful as Coinbase had. That was one of their problems. So I think traders will go where it's convenient for them to trade. So what's convenient for them? Are there asset pairs they want to trade there? Is there sufficient liquidity? Is there good execution? Well, DEX is like, do I have to wait like for block confirmation for 10 minutes or whatever? Like are things like that. Like wherever it makes economic sense, do so, and wherever there's the least amount of operational complexity and possibility, like possibility for error. That's what's important. I don't think necessarily like they're tied to say, hey, because Ethereum's been around longest, I'm just going to stay on Ethereum. I think like, if there's a need Ethereum's not serving and it's served better by somewhere else, I'm pretty sure they'll all, a rational trader will just switch to that platform.
Yeah, that sounds really where things can come. I think what you said about centralized exchange is very true. I don't think anyone see how non-custodial Uniswap could possibly become so big last year, right?
Yeah.
Even the idea of non-custodial, people understood it for many years, right? And 0x finally also have a great last few weeks. I do think that there are two parts to it. The technology has to be there, right? If Hummingbot doesn't build even the integration between Coinbase and Binance, very few people actually have the technical ability to be able to, like, say, arbitrage any exchange, even though they see it, right? That's the premium. Like, how do I take advantage of it? And for Harmony, we're thinking about similar things, right? Most people don't even connect the network, right? They can't do it non-custodially or like trustlessly. That's what we'll say. Many people talk about and actually have built BTC and ETA bridge for years, right? Finally, whether Thorchain or what we're building with the BTC bridge, Keeps network, finally showed that non-custodial cell or open source cell has value, right? And I don't think any chain, any blockchain period we build all the way to integrating with exchanges, right? Taking the order book, arbitraging with the order book there. So I do see Hummingbot and like decentralized market making that have both the chain integration and exchange integration is still pretty unique.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I also read through your year review that have like quite a few metrics. Maybe you can say one or two just so that to get
Sure.
our community also excited about not just thinking about trading perspective, but like the growth of the entire industry.
Yeah, sure. So for us, just well, specifically for our platform, it's been growing quite a lot. So I think like when we first, I actually just put up when we did our like test campaign in 2019 for Harmony. That was obviously our pilot program where we were testing our system. And I in that one, I think we had in 2 months we had about 6 million of filled volume on one pairs in that one. But if I look at our stats now for one of our campaigns, on average, our campaigns for an issuer trades almost 3 million in 1 week.
That's
so we've gone from like 3 million in a month to 3 million in a week. So people, more users. So we've also grown the user base. We have like 1,300 folks who participated market make in these things. And the thing is like, and this is not like, it's a lot more complex than say Uniswap. So people have to actually set up a trading bot, set up, get their API keys, run a market making algorithm, do these kind of things, which is fairly complex kind of thing. So it goes like, so we're pretty proud that we were able to convert so many people, like just ordinary traders, and kind of introduce them to the world of market making and automated trading. And we've been able to do that. But in terms of like our platform, so yeah, since then we've had about 16 different issuers, I think 17 who are launched campaigns or are currently running campaigns now. And yeah, it's been really, really, really great for us, for our community to kind of just continue to grow. Right now on our Discord, we have, I think, over 9,000 folks in our Discord. So it's probably one of the largest trading or quant trading communities in crypto there is, if not the largest.
Wow.
It's great because we have all folks from different walks of life. So basically, even we have individual users trading using Hummingbot. We have token issuers using Hummingbot to provide liquidity. We actually have, we know of hedge funds who are using Hummingbot to provide market making services for token issuers using Hummingbot. So it's kind of like the full spectrum of folks in our space. And what that's shown us is obviously there is a demand. There is like people want to get access to this form of trading, which they haven't had before. And just people just don't have the resources or know how to just set up their own bot, which is fairly complicated. And that we're able to have different kinds of users all across the different the market shows that there is a big need that we're able to address, and hopefully we can continue to address and improve upon as we go along.
Yeah, it's just amazing growth the last 2-3 years. The fact that you guys grow a big team decentralized, but also everyone contributing to your repo is really speaking volume.
That's a good point. I didn't mention that as well yet. So we have like 72 contributors to our repo. We even have development shop partners who are kind of building connectors for other exchanges. And we have, our community is growing in many different parts. We have, I think today someone posted this market making trader shop posted on our chat groups, like looking for a trader who has some experience in coding because they want to build basically their bots using on top of Hummingbot and add more connectors. So so we have like kind of the community is growing. So we're pretty happy about that. Just like not just like for the individual users, but we're creating a community ecosystem around Hummingbot, which is not just us yet.
Yeah, we're very excited for you guys as well. For the last question, I want to ask a long-term question, right? So Kyber, Starkware, Diversify, already thinking about on-chain order book, already thinking about many of the innovations that central exchange is able to do. I'm very curious about what's your take about like more professional market making, like Kyber and quite a few like Serum. Everyone want to
Yep.
innovate on the trading platform point of view, but also really curating to market makers, right? Because at the end of the day, that's where traders, where smart people is part of the really the important part of the ecosystem of trading.
Mhm.
And then the long term, right? Can you ever imagine that Hummingbot will live on chain, right? If they're a platform, well, I call it Harmony, that
Yeah.
one day is already be able to connect both all these different chains, but the way that Diversify is able to do is actually be able to manage the order book from central exchange, be able to be using zero knowledge proof to
Yeah.
be able to push that so that the pools without front running still be able to have some like commitment to the on-chain trading. So what's Hummingbot view on these like mega trends?
Yeah, good question. So I think kind of what I alluded to earlier, I think like in terms of like serums and these kind of and Kyber, I think like there's always a needs for different types of traders. There's no one size fits all kind of solution. So that's why I think like centralized in the broad perspective, like DEX versus centralized, yes, there will always be a need for them. But even within them, drilling into it, it's like, is there a need for serum? Yes, because like people want kind of to combine the benefits of decentralization as well as with the capabilities of like order books, more like centralized kind of themes. So I think would definitely be interesting. How it all plays out. Like, is there one main like exchange for this kind of thing eventually? Or I think there will be a few different ones. And again, and the other thing with decentralization is like it's able to sustain all different kinds of things. And I think right now we're kind of, even this whole AMM thing, it's kind of one big experiment that's ongoing, and we're trying to still figure out what works, what's not. Like, who knows? Like, is Uniswap going to be around in 10 years, or is it the next Uniswap that's going to be 10 times better and take over in 10 years? That's when we still kind of don't know. For us, even to be honest, like, I don't know, maybe my response is a bit general, but like even Hummingbot, there's different functions that are kind of things like, yeah, like AMM, like capturing ARB. Yeah, that can be automated. So that's kind of like what Wi-Fi does too as well. It kind of just automates kind of funding trades and tries to actually capture different ARBs. So that's one part of Hummingbot that potentially long-term can live on the blockchain. But other things are like, the other thing with trade, even our tool is, so Hummingbot is the framework, that kind of like the execution engine. It does things for you. But then like for trading, like the secret sauce is not the mechanics and nuts and bolts. The secret sauce is kind of like the human element. I guess human element. Like, so like what that means, like choosing which pairs to trade, choosing different parameters, customizing different things. So kind of like
testing.
Yeah, exactly.
Failures.
Yeah, all these things. So that part I don't think will be replicated by a blockchain. I think that there's things like that where it's like a trade secret. It's the advantage between some versus others, which obviously folks would not want to willingly share. But I think in terms of execution and the execution part of it, yes, that's definitely something that could end up moving to blockchain. And even our liquidity mining platform. So right now, because like, we're collecting order book data, so we are actually verifying it ourselves. So it's to some point, like, is there a way we can actually have this be on chain? Because if in the kind of like crypto purist world of things, like we are still centralized, isn't that? We are still aggregating data from exchanges, we're processing it, and we're making payments. So that part of it is a centralized operation just to do all that stuff. So is there a point where we should move it to decentralized? Yeah, if you're a crypto purist, yes, like you want to be able to verify this data without relying on us too. So that could be eventually down the road as well, something to consider. If there's a need, if there's a pressing need, like I guess if 10 years down the road, the community doesn't trust us, then maybe we'll build one that's kind of like
hopefully sooner than 10 years.
Open source, yeah.
Yeah, well, we all want to decentralize IRS first, right? All
Right.
these like business cash flow management, like accounting, it's just too painful for even crypto companies to deal with. I heard you guys automate so much of it, but then at the end of the day, you don't want to deal with it. Make it a DAO, make it a community-owned like payment, like out of their own.
Yeah.
It's still. Uh, I hope really not 10 years, right? No one wants to do accounting for 10 more years, even for a community payout. But I do love the long-term vision, right? Like right now, it's really about where the need is. It's amazing need too, right? The DeFi use, the DeFi arbitrage, even with AMA being there and its growing market is a strong validation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much today. Any other thing that you want to say to our audience?
No, I think that's it. We covered it. I guess maybe one last thing is we did announce the Harmony campaign for Kucoin. So obviously,
It's you. Come on.
let me just give you guys a give overview of that. So
Sure.
similar to our liquidity mining campaigns, and Harmony was also one of our launch campaigns on when we did Binance. Now we're launching on Kucoin. So so this year so the past year when we launched on Binance, it was really for us to work out the kinks in the system. So basically have it be scalable, have it be more resilient. So that's what we were working on. So the next step is we are bringing liquidity mining to more exchanges. So the first one we're kicking off is Kucoin. And so we're definitely thrilled to have Harmony as be one of our launch partners again. Like I mentioned earlier, like kind of along with us every step of the way here. So on that, so we're offering reward pool. So it's basically $5,000 for 4 weeks. It's for traders who provide liquidity for 1 BTC and 1 USDT. And so it's going to start on Monday PST, or basically midnight Tuesday UTC time. So folks who trade these pairs on KuCoin will be eligible to earn rewards for like, and how our liquidity mining works is users are incentivized for creating maker orders. So creating order book depth liquidity and within kind of some parameters. So like for 1 USD, for example, it's spreads at 2% or tighter. So that's starting. I know like even from the beginning, there's a lot of Harmony folks involved in the Hummingbot community. So we encourage more folks to who maybe didn't participate in the past or just are hearing about this kind of thing for the first time now. We definitely encourage you. Again, for multiple number of reasons. Benefits, obviously, one is you're helping the one token be more liquid. So you're helping that tradability more. You're also able to earn rewards. And one thing I mentioned also in this call is kind of like, it's a good way for anyone interested in learning more about market making, learning more about algo trading, quant trading, to try it out, because while you're kind of testing it out and learning about this kind of form of trading, you're also earning rewards. So that kind of helps, increase your profits for these kind of trials.
Yeah, thank Carlo. Most of all, like really explaining the purpose of the campaign. You guys write very well of all the blogs, but also educational material. It's really the best way. People like really always wish to be like understanding how Wall Street works. This is all in the open. Most of all, you guys have a community to help each other to really get to this journey. So this is so important. And same thing for us. Harmony was very lucky that both you and Hummingbot and Mike, the CEO, to help us understand where DeFi is, connecting with partners. So we were very lucky to be a launch partner again with Kucoin. This is going to be amazing.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just stop the recording for now. Yeah.
Okay.